in a world of power and danger.
Sir. The penthouse alarm pierced the night at 2:13 a.m., sharp and insistent, cutting through the New York skyline like a knife. Vincent Moretti bolted upright in his king-sized bed on the top floor of his Tribeca tower, heart slamming against his ribs before his mind even caught up. The monitor on his nightstand lit up Red Lila's nursery. His 6-month-old daughter's cries exploded through the speaker, raw and frantic, the kind that said something was very wrong. He was already moving, bare feet hitting cold hardwood, black silk robe forgotten as he sprinted down the hallway. Security lights snapped on in sequence, casting long shadows across marble and glass. "Lila!" His voice cracked on her name low, commanding, terrified. He burst into the nursery. The room smelled of baby powder and fear. Lila thrashed in her crib, face red, tiny fists clenched, screaming like the world was ending. No fever when he pressed his palm to her forehead, no obvious injury, but the pediatrician had warned about colic that could hit like this, sudden, merciless, unstoppable. Vincent scooped her up, cradling her against his chest. "Hey, Principessa, Daddy's got you," he murmured, rocking her the way the night nurse had shown him weeks ago. But tonight, the rocking did nothing. Her cries only sharpened, echoing off the high ceilings. He paced the room, bouncing her gently, humming fragments of an old Sinatra tune his mother used to sing. Nothing worked. The intercom buzzed. Carlo, his second-in-command, sir, appeared in the doorway, still buttoning his shirt. "Boss, we got the on-call doc en route. Traffic's a nightmare rains flooding the bridges." Vincent didn't look up. "Tell him to hurry." Lila's wails drilled into his skull. He sank into the glider chair, shoulders hunched, the most feared man on the eastern seaboard reduced to helpless rocking. His empire ran on fear and precision tonight. It meant nothing. By 3 a.m., 3 elite nannies had arrived, flown in from agencies that catered to billionaires and celebrities. The first, a crisp blonde in Lululemon, lasted 40 seconds after hearing the name Moretti and seeing the discreet Glock on Carlo's hip. "20,000 for the night," she said flatly, "plus a confidentiality bonus, and I want out by dawn, no extensions." Vincent's eyes narrowed. 20,000. The second, older, more experienced, crossed her arms. "Make it 25. I've got kids. I don't do hazard pay, verbally contract, or I'm gone." She glanced at Lila's red face and back toward the door. The third actually smirked. 30 if you want me to stay past sunrise. Your call, Mr. Moretti." One by one they named their price, then left when he refused to pay up front in cash. The nursery door clicked shut behind the last one. Silence fell except for Lila's exhausted sobs. Vincent pressed his forehead to hers, whispering apologies he couldn't keep. "I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm so damn sorry." His voice broke, for the first time since losing Sofia Reyes, sir, mother in that Hitandrun 18 months ago. He felt truly alone. Powerless. From the shadowed hallway, Sofia Reyes watched, apron still tied from the late-night kitchen cleanup. She'd stayed behind to polish silver no one would notice, needing the extra hours for her sister's tuition back in Brooklyn. She wasn't supposed to interfere. House rules were clear. Staff stayed invisible, but those cries, they tore at her. She stepped into the doorway, soft-soled shoes silent on the floor. "Mr. Moretti, may I?" Vincent lifted his head slowly. His dark eyes, usually cold steel, were bloodshot, desperate. He took in the quiet Latina maid who'd been keeping his home running for 6 months, without a single complaint. "You?" Sofia nodded, arms already open. "Just for a minute. Please. I can't listen to her hurt like this." He hesitated, every instinct screaming caution. Then Lila let out a shattered wail that decided it. He placed his daughter in Sofia's arms. The change was instant. Sofia tucked Lila against her shoulder, one hand supporting her head, the other rubbing slow circles on her back. She began to sway gentle. Instinctive Anne started whispering in a low, melodic voice, words in soft Spanglish mixed with lullaby tones. "Shh, my pequeña, está segura. Tu vas a estar bien." Lila's body stilled, her cries hitched, fractured, then softened to whimpers. Within moments, her eyelids drooped. Vincent stood frozen, breath caught. The entire security detail had gathered quietly in the hall, jaws slack. Carlo whispered, "Holy hell." Sofia kept swaying, eyes on the baby, unaware of the storm she'd just calmed or the one she'd ignited in the man watching her. Vincent's chest rose and fell hard. How? Sofia glanced up, hazel eyes steady, no fear. She just needed to feel held, like someone wasn't afraid of her pain. She smiled faintly. Babies know who's safe. Outside, rain lashed the windows. Inside, Vincent Moretti felt the first real crack in the fortress he'd built around his heart since the day he buried his wife. He couldn't look away from the woman cradling his world like it was her own. And in that moment, everything changed. Sofia kept swaying in the dim nursery light, Lila's small body finally limp against her shoulder, tiny breaths evening out into the soft rhythm of sleep. The rain outside had slowed to a steady patter against the glass. The city below reduced to smeared streaks of neon and headlights. Vincent stood rooted a few feet away, arms hanging loose at his sides, still processing the impossible quiet that had replaced the chaos of the last hour. He cleared his throat, the sound rough in the stillness. You're not even supposed to be here this late. Sofia didn't stop moving. She glanced at him sideways, a small, almost shy curve to her lips. I was finishing the silver in the dining room, heard the crying from the service stairs. Couldn't leave knowing no one was helping her. Vincent ran a hand over his face, stubble rasping against his palm. Everyone else ran the second they heard my name. Demanded 20 grand just to stand in the same room. You walked in and this. He gestured vaguely at Lila, at the peaceful rise and fall of her chest. How? Sofia's eyes softened as she looked down at the baby. My little sister Isabella, she had colic bad when she was this small. My mom worked double shifts at the hospital, so it was me and her most nights. I learned the tricks, the right hold, the right pressure on her back, the right voice. Sometimes it's not about being fancy, it's just about showing up. Vincent watched her fingers trace slow, soothing circles over Lila's back, steady, instinctive. Something in his chest twisted hard. He'd spent the last 18 months surrounding himself with people who were paid to be loyal, paid to stay, paid to pretend they weren't terrified of him, and here was this woman barely making rent, in a walk-up in Bushwick giving everything she had, for nothing. He pulled the glider ottoman closer and sat, elbows on his knees, closer to her now. The faint scent of lemon polish and something warmer, like vanilla from her skin, reached him. You don't have to keep holding her. I can take over. I know you can. Sofia's voice stayed low, careful not to wake the baby, but she's finally calm. If I hand her off too quick, she'll start again. Let her stay like this a little longer. He nodded once, swallowing. For a long minute they sat in silence, only the soft hum of the city, and Lila's breathing between them. Vincent studied Sofia's profile, the way the lamp caught the curve of her cheek, the faint freckles across her nose he'd never noticed before, the way her dark hair slipped loose from its low bun and brushed her collarbone. You've been here 6 months, he said quietly. I see you every morning, coffee on the counter, floors spotless, never a word unless I speak first. I never ask your name until tonight. Sofia Reyes. She met his gaze, unflinching. And I never asked yours either, Mr. Moretti. I just did the job. Vincent. The correction came out softer than he intended. When we're alone, Vincent. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, surprised, but she nodded. Vincent. The word felt strange in the air, too intimate, too human for the man who signed death warrants with the same hand he was using now to rub the back of his neck. He leaned forward. Why free? You could have asked for anything. 20 grand would have changed your life. Sofia's smile was small, tired, real. Because she needed someone tonight. Not a transaction, not a paycheck, just someone who cared enough to stay. She looked at him then, really looked past the tailored suit, past the reputation, straight into the exhaustion and grief he tried to hide from everyone. And honestly, you looked like you needed someone to stay too. The words landed like a punch he hadn't braced for. Vincent's throat worked. He stared at the floor for a beat, then back at her. Sofia, my wife, she died, sir. The night Lila was born. Drunk driver. I was across the river closing a deal when the call came. By the time I got to the hospital, he trailed off, jaw tight. I've been trying to be enough ever since, failing most days. Sofia didn't offer platitudes. She just listened, rocking gently, letting the silence hold his words. After a moment she spoke, voice barely above a whisper. You're not failing, you're here. In the middle of the night, scared out of your mind. That's what being enough looks like. Vincent exhaled hard, like he'd been holding the breath for months. He reached out slow, carefully, and brushed the pad of his thumb across Leela's tiny fist where it curled against Sofia's collar. His knuckles grazed Sofia's skin in the process. Neither of them pulled away. The contact lingered. Warm, electric, dangerous. He lifted his eyes to hers. "You're not afraid of me." "I'm not afraid of you," she confirmed quietly. "I'm afraid for you. There's a difference." Outside, the rain picked up again, drumming a steady rhythm against the windows. Inside the nursery, Vincent Moretti felt the walls he'd spent a lifetime building begin to tremble, not from force, but from something far more terrifying, kindness he hadn't earned, and a woman who saw him anyway. The nursery clock ticked past 4:30 a.m., its soft glow the only marker of time in the hushed room. Lila remained deeply asleep in Sofia's arms, her cheek pressed to the curve of Sofia's neck, tiny fingers loosely curled into the fabric of the maid's uniform. Sofia hadn't shifted position in over an hour. Her back must have ached, her legs numb from standing, but she showed no sign of discomfort. She simply held the baby with the same quiet steadiness she brought to every task in the house. Vincent hadn't moved from the ottoman either. He sat forward, forearms resting on his thighs, watching them both like they were the only things anchoring him to the earth. The rain had finally eased into a faint drizzle, leaving the city lights to shimmer clearer now, sharp pinpricks of gold and white against the black glass. He broke the silence first, voice low enough not to disturb the baby. "You're gonna fall over if you don't sit down." Sofia gave a small, breathy laugh, the first real sound of amusement he'd heard from her tonight. "I've stood through worse. 12-hour shifts at my old diner job in Bushwick. This is nothing." Still, she eased herself carefully into the rocking chair opposite him, settling Lila across her chest without waking her. The movement was practiced, fluid. Vincent watched every detail, the gentle adjustment of the baby's head, the way Sofia tucked the blanket higher under Lila's chin, the faint exhale of relief when she finally sat. Their eyes met across the small space. No rush, no agenda, just the raw honesty that comes when the rest of the world is asleep. Vincent rubbed his palms together slowly. "Tell me something real about you, Sofia, not the resume version. The part nobody at the agency asked for." She tilted her head, considering. A strand of dark hair fell across her cheek. She blew it away gently, rather than free a hand. "Okay, real version. I grew up in a third-floor walk-up off Flushing Avenue. Single mom who cleaned houses like this one until her knees gave out. My little sister Bella, she's 15 now, dreams of being a doctor. She's smart, Vincent, scary smart. But college isn't cheap, and scholarships only cover so much. So I dropped out of community college nursing program to take this job. Better pay, steady hours. I send almost everything home." She paused, looking down at Lila's peaceful face. "Every time I walk through these doors, I think about how different this life looks from mine. Marble floors, private elevators, people who can drop 20 grand like it's lunch money. But then I see you with her, scared, exhausted, still showing up on. I realize the money doesn't buy the things that actually matter." Vincent's throat worked. He leaned forward until his elbows rested on his knees, closing half the distance between them. "You make it sound simple, like kindness is just a choice." "It is," she said softly. "Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's still a choice." He studied her for a long beat. The lamp cast warm shadows across her features, highlighting the faint worry line between her brows, the determined set of her mouth. She wasn't beautiful in the polished, expensive way the women in his world usually were. She was real, tired eyes, calloused hands from years of work, quiet strength that didn't need to shout. Vincent reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed hers where they rested on Lila's backlight, tentative. When she didn't flinch, he let his hand cover hers completely. Warmth spread from the contact, traveling up his arm like something waking up after a long freeze. "You stayed," he murmured. "No contract, no bonus, no fear. Just you." Sofia turned her hand palm up beneath his, letting their fingers lace together naturally. "I stayed because walking away felt wrong. For her, and maybe a little for you." The admission hung between them, fragile and electric. Vincent's pulse thundered in his ears. He could count on one hand the number of people who'd ever looked at him without calculating risk or reward. Sofia looked at him like he was just a man holding his daughter's future together with duct tape and desperation. He squeezed her hand once, gently. "I don't know how to do this, let someone in. After Sofia, I locked everything down. Built walls so high even I can't climb them sometimes. But tonight," his voice roughened, "tonight you walked right through like they were paper." Sofia's thumb traced a slow arc across his knuckles. "Maybe the walls aren't as high as you think. Maybe you just needed someone who wasn't afraid to look for the door." Lila stirred then, a tiny, sleepy sound escaping her. Both of them froze, breath held then relaxed when she only nuzzled closer to Sofia's warmth and settled again. Vincent let out a quiet, shaky laugh. "See? Even she knows you're safe." Sofia smiled small, tired, radiant. She's not the only one who knows. Their joined hands stayed linked, neither pulled away. Outside, the city began its slow awakening, delivery trucks rumbling, distant sirens fading in and out. Inside the nursery, time felt suspended. Vincent Moretti, the man who controlled half the shadows of New York, sat holding hands with the maid who had just held his entire world in her arms, and for the first time in 18 months, the weight on his chest didn't feel quite so crushing. The first faint gray of pre-dawn seeped through the nursery curtains, turning the room from deep shadow to soft charcoal. Lila stayed blissfully asleep, her breathing a steady whisper against Sofia's collarbone. Sofia's arms had gone heavy hours ago, but she refused to let go. Every small shift risked waking the baby, and the quiet they'd fought so hard to earn felt too precious to break. Vincent rose silently from the ottoman, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. Without a word, he disappeared into the hallway, returning moments later with a thick cashmere throw from the living room and 2 steaming mugs of coffee balanced on a small tray. The rich, dark aroma cut through the sterile nursery air like a promise of morning. He draped the blanket over Sofia's shoulders first, careful not to jostle Lila. The weight settled warm and heavy. She exhaled softly in gratitude. Then he set one mug on the side table beside her black. No sugar, the way he'd noticed she took it during late-night cleanups, when she thought no one was watching. "Thank you," she murmured, voice hoarse from hours of quiet humming. Vincent sat again, this time on the floor in front of the rocking chair, back against the wall, knees drawn up, close enough that if he reached out he could touch her ankle. He cradled his own mug between both hands, staring into the steam. "I keep waiting for you to ask for something. Money, time off, anything, but you haven't." Sofia took a slow sip, letting the heat chase the chill from her fingers. "I don't need to ask. If I wanted something from you, I'd say it. Right now, all I want is for her to keep sleeping, and for you to stop looking like the weight of the world is about to crush you." He let out a short, humorless laugh. "That obvious? You've got shadows under your eyes deeper than the Hudson at midnight." She tilted her head, studying him. "You don't sleep much, do you? Not since the accident." The words came out flat, practiced. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the hospital hallway, the doctor's face, the empty crib they wheeled out because Sofia never made it to recovery." He paused, jaw flexing. "Lila was born fighting. I wasn't there for the first breath. I've been trying to make up for it every second since." Sofia set her mug down carefully. She reached forward, slow, deliberate hand rested her free hand on his forearm. The touch was light, but it anchored him like an iron chain in a storm. "You can't live in yesterday forever, Vincent. You'll drown there. Lila needs you here, right now, breathing, present." His eyes flicked to her hand on his arm, then up to her face. Something raw and unguarded flashed across his features: grief, exhaustion, and beneath it all, a flicker of longing he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "You make it sound possible," he said quietly. "It is possible." Her thumb moved once, a small reassuring stroke against his sleeve. "Not easy, but possible. One night at a time, one person at a time." The silence stretched again, thicker now, charged. Vincent turned his hand over slowly, palm up, an invitation. Sofia hesitated only a heartbeat before sliding her fingers into his. Their hands fit together with startling ease, his rough from years of decisions no one else could make, hers steady from years of holding things together when everything else fell apart. He stared at their joined hands like they belonged to strangers. I don't do this. Let people close. Not after I know, she interrupted gently. I see it every day. The way you keep everyone at arm's length. The way the house feels more like a fortress than a home. But tonight, the fortress door opened, and I walked through it. I'm not asking to stay forever. I'm just asking you to let yourself breathe for 5 minutes without armor. Vincent's thumb traced the edge of her wrist, slow and deliberate. The simple touch sent heat racing under his skin. He lifted his gaze to hers, really looked, and whatever he saw there made his breath hitch. You're not afraid I'll hurt you, he said, almost wonderingly. Sofia shook her head. I'm afraid you'll hurt yourself trying to keep everyone else out, including me. Lila let out a tiny sleepy sigh then, shifting slightly. Both of them froze, watching her settle again with matching soft smiles. The moment felt fragile, sacred, like the whole city held its breath so they could have this. Vincent leaned forward until their foreheads nearly touched. Stay, he whispered. Not just tonight. Stay close. Let me help with your sister's school. Let me get your mom out of that walk-up. Let me figure out how to be a man who deserves someone like you in his life. Sofia's eyes shimmered in the dim light. I don't need you to deserve me, Vincent. I just need you to try. He closed the last inch of distance, pressing his lips to her forehead, not a kiss of passion, but one of gratitude so deep it bordered on reverence. She closed her eyes, leaning into it, her hand tightening in his. Outside, the first true light of dawn brushed the skyline gold. Inside, two people who had spent too long surviving finally began to remember what living felt like together, hands linked, a sleeping baby between them, and the promise of something real beginning to take root. In the quiet, the nursery filled with the soft rose gold of true sunrise, light spilling across the crib and painting everything in gentle warmth. Lila remained lost in dreams, one small hand flung open beside her cheek, completely at peace. Sofia's arms had long since gone numb, but she held on anyway because letting go now felt like breaking something fragile and irreplaceable. Vincent hadn't moved from the floor in front of her. Their hands stayed linked, fingers threaded together so naturally, it was as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. He looked up at her now, the exhaustion in his dark eyes softened by something new, something unguarded, almost hopeful. I've been sitting here replaying the last few hours, he said quietly, voice rough from lack of sleep and too many unsaid things. Every nanny who walked through that door saw the name Moretti and saw dollar signs, 20 grand, 30. Whatever it took to make the risk worth it. They looked at Lila and saw a paycheck. They looked at me and saw danger. He paused, thumb brushing slow circles over her knuckles. You looked at her and saw a baby who was hurting. You looked at me and saw a father who was drowning. And you stayed. For free, all night, no demands, no conditions. Sofia's eyes shimmered in the morning light. She didn't interrupt, just listened, the way she'd listened to every broken word he'd let slip since midnight. Vincent exhaled, long and shaky. I don't know how to thank you for that, Sofia. Words feel too small. Money feels insulting. But I need you to hear, sir. This, you didn't just calm my daughter tonight. You reminded me there are still people in the world who choose kindness when they don't have to. And that cracked something open in me I thought was sealed shut forever. He rose slowly to his knees so their faces were level, close enough that she could see the faint tremor in his jaw. I've spent 18 months building walls so no one could get close enough to hurt me or Lila again. But you walked right past every single one. You didn't ask permission. You just cared. And I'm standing here at dawn realizing I'm in love with you for it. The confession hung between them, simple, raw, stripped of every layer of power and protection he usually wore. Sofia's breath caught, tears welled, one slipping free to trace down her cheek. Vincent reached up with his free hand and brushed it away with the pad of his thumb. I know it's fast. I know my life is complicated, dangerous, even. I know I come with shadows most people run from. But I also know I've never felt this sure about anything. Not since the day Lila was born. He leaned his forehead against hers, eyes closing for a moment like the contact grounded him. Stay with us. Not as staff. Not because of obligation. Stay because you want to. Let me help with Bella's college. Let me bring your mom here, get her the care she needs. Let me build something real with you, something good, something ours. Sofia let out a soft, trembling laugh through her tears. Vincent, I've watched, sir. You every morning for 6 months. The way you kiss Leela's head before you leave, even when you're running on no sleep. The way you check her monitor a dozen times a night, even when everything's fine. I fell for you long before tonight. I just never thought someone like you could ever see someone like me. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Someone like you is exactly what I've been missing my whole life. Their lips met then slow, tender, full of everything the night had held back. It wasn't hungry or desperate. It was a promise. A beginning. When they parted, both were smiling through damp lashes, foreheads still touching. Lila stirred at last, letting out a tiny, contented gurgle. Sofia laughed softly, shifting the baby to look down at her. Morning, beautiful girl. Vincent reached over and stroked Lila's cheek with one finger. She's smiling in her sleep. Never seen that before. Sofia glanced at him, eyes bright. She knows she's safe. We all do. From the hallway came the faint sound of footsteps, Garlow and the morning shift arriving, voices low and surprised as they realized the penthouse was still standing after the night storm. Vincent didn't move to meet them. He stayed right there, hand in Sofia's. The three of them bathed in sunrise. He pressed one more kiss to her temple. We're gonna be okay, he whispered. All three of us. Sofia nodded, heart so full it ached. Yeah, we are. As the city woke below them, horns, sirens, the endless hum of new. Sir. York Vincent Moretti held the woman who had walked into his darkness and brought light, while their little girl dreamed on between them. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like home. If this story wrapped itself around your heart the way it did mine, come join us at Cinematic Mafia Love. Hit that like if you believe real love can still walk through any door. Drop a comment with the moment that hit you hardest, and subscribe so you never miss the next time two broken hearts find their way to each other. I'll be right here waiting for you in the next one, because stories like this remind us that even in the darkest worlds, love always finds a way.